Anyway, Craig Gottwaltz joins us. Craig, the Obamacare lawyer who's been our go-to guy to understand government involvement in health care and benefits and that sort of thing for a very long time, joins us now. Hey, Craig, how are you?
Good morning, Joe and Jack.
Hey,
do you know what the proper response is to "Doctor, it hurts when I do this"?
Stop doing that.
Yes, then don't do that.
Right, exactly. Well done.
It's a test I often give any doctor we have on the line. I thought I'd do it with an insurance specialist also.
It's the mom test, too, you know.
Yeah, exactly.
Cut it out. So, Craig, listen, I've read what you're saying about the CBO, the Congressional Budget Office, which is allegedly nonpartisan, does a pretty good job of being nonpartisan.
The best part I like about it is if they're on your side on the issue, you talk about how they're nonpartisan experts who regularly get it right. If they come up with something you don't like, they're always wrong.
Right.
They're a bunch of partisan hacks.
It's a lot like the ratings in the radio business. Anyway, so listen, they've tried to estimate how many people would be insured, how many people would not be insured, what it would cost, et cetera, et cetera. And our approach to this is less about, is this a good law? Because it will never pass in its current form. That's right. I think it would be fun for us to talk with you a little bit about how it's being reported, how seriously to take the CBO report. I mean, for instance, the headline that it would leave 23 million people uninsured. Can we start there?
That is the headline.
Yeah.
Oh, it's everywhere.
We can start there.
Sure. What do you think of that?
The first report that came out back in March said 24 million, and I was on your very airwave early May, about 20 days ago. And we talked about it, and you guys said, well, what's this new iteration of the bill going to do? And I said, it's not going to do all that much. I mean, more people are going to be covered, and costs are going to be a little higher because they're giving away much. But it's really, they only moved the law like 6 inches to the right when they did this. And so I didn't think there would be that much of a difference. But when I saw the headlines, I thought, 23 million? No, they're freeing it up more than that. That should be a smaller number. Well, you don't have to dig far. The CBO report is 41 pages. Right there on page 1, if anybody in the media had read this critically and thought about those first 2 paragraphs, what it's saying is there's actually going to be less than – the 23 million number is high. It's going to be less than that. The report itself goes on to say, because we're granting more freedom to the states in this system, there will be people that buy insurance policies that are limited and high deductible and don't have all of the coverages that we would deem are necessary for health care. Therefore, there will be a few million more people that buy insurance, but it's not going to be insurance that we deem is insurance. So we're still going to count them as uninsured.
So it has to do with the definition. So, for instance, if Texas said, listen, if you just want major medical, you're young, you're healthy, you never go to the doctor, and all you want is a plan that kicks in if you break your leg or you get cancer, that's fine. Here in Texas, you can buy that. The CBO would consider those people uninsured.
That's correct.
That's pretty interesting.
CBO itself, the report says there will be a few million more people covered by those policies, but we're not counting them.
That's interesting because when I was young and running around, all my friends that were like bartenders or in bands or that sort of stuff, that's the kind of insurance they had. They called it bust your ass insurance. But so that doesn't count as insurance according to the government people.
No, not in this latest iteration. This is new. Like back in March, they weren't addressing this issue, but because they put the change into the law that said states could do something different. Now the CBO came out and said, well, we're not going to count those people as insured, so it's still going to be 23 million uninsured, which, I mean, that's just disingenuous, honestly.
Right.
Because you're giving people choice and they choose to buy something lesser, you're not going to count that as insured now?
Well, and under Obamacare, which nobody on the left ever addresses, is collapsing. It will not exist in a year or two. It is dying. But anyway, under Obamacare, everybody had to get full-on, super-duper, covers everything, including pregnancy for 80-year-old women, insurance. And that was the only sort of thing that was approved. I don't need that. I don't want that. I don't want to pay for it. So, yeah, the idea that that's no insurance at all is just an absurdity. But anyway, what else have you seen in the coverage or the report that you think really needs clarifying? As a guy, and I usually say this in the introduction, Craig advises companies on benefits and health care, and he's got to get it right. What's actually happening, not pitching some partisan fantasy or nightmare. He has to advise his clients what's actually happening. So what else have you seen in the coverage?
Well, a couple of things that repeatedly come up in the coverage, and I hear 99% of the news media get it wrong when they talk about it, is to say this is a huge tax cut for the rich. This is nothing but Donald Trump putting in a tax cut for the rich. And while on its face that you could argue that is very true, the reason that's occurring is because this bill goes in and repeals 21 of the 22 taxes Obamacare put in 2010. Okay? So, Obamacare put in 22 new taxes overwhelmingly geared at the rich and the better off and those who were healthy and frankly, seniors, and hurt the young. Well, when you go in and you rip those taxes out, you're undoing something that was done 7 years ago that was aimed at the rich. So necessarily, yeah, this is going to be a tax cut mainly benefiting the more well-off.
Gotcha.
But they make it sound like it's something new. No, this is just going back to where we were in 2010 on that issue.
And my objection to that sort of posturing is that Obamacare was designed to fail, in my opinion. It certainly is failing, and it was inevitably going to fail. So it's a unicorn. It did some people plenty of good, and I'm happy about that. But it was never going to be sustainable. So the idea that it is somehow abhorrent and improper to do something other than Obamacare, or more fiscally conservative or responsible than Obamacare, I mean, that's just dumb, because Obamacare is dying. It's like canceling our monthly vacation to Hawaii. You've cut back 80% on vacations to Hawaii. Yeah, because it was ruining us. That's why. On the other hand, if you're in favor of single payer, I'll concede you want more of that stuff. We just see the world differently, and that's fine. Anyway, what else?
Yeah. Well, the other thing that is in the same vein is you keep hearing this in the news media. This is bad for seniors. This is bad for seniors. This is balancing healthcare's problems on the backs of our seniors. Well, again, Obamacare was unfair to the young. Obamacare in 2010 completely rejiggered the way we calculate health insurance to greatly benefit seniors and to hurt the young unduly in ways that were not actuarially sound. So this is undoing that. And again, of course, the spin becomes, oh, this is just hurting our seniors, when in reality, no, it's just doing that which is economically and mathematically necessary.
Yeah, it's sort of a writ small version of the entire budget conversation that's been going on since Trump's budget got put out there. Not that Trump's budget has any chance of ending up being the budget. No president's budget ever does. But all the arguments are about the things that are being cut because he's trying to get it closer to sustainable. You're going to have to cut. We spend more than we take in. So you're going to have to get rid of stuff. There's just no other way around it. But anytime you attempt to get rid of stuff, people howl about the fact that you're doing something awful. Well, we can't keep doing this. So what do you suggest? It's the same argument with this healthcare situation.
Now's a perfect time for this. Hey, Vince, could you grab me a Mick Mulvaney sound? Listen to this. This is the budget director yesterday in front of Congress who was being grilled and yelled at for being mean to people.
What about the standard of living for my grandchildren who aren't here yet, who will end up inheriting $30 trillion in debt, $50 trillion in debt, $100 trillion in debt? What about their standard? Who's going to pay the bill, Congressman? That's what this is all about.
Yeah, thank God somebody said it.
You can't get anywhere with that argument, though, as you're seeing with this healthcare discussion. They're talking about the things that are be taking away. You were giving something we can't afford.
Yeah, let me put that in context for you guys. Uh-oh, did I lose the call?
Nope, we're here.
Oh, okay. Okay, good. Obamacare was essentially, through health insurance, a 1.75, and again, that number varied every CBO report, but about a $1.75 trillion redistribution from the wealthy to the sick, from the more fortunate to the less fortunate.
From the young to the old.
Right. Yeah, exactly. From the young to the old in that case. Trump Care is still a $1.6 trillion redistribution. So, you're hearing all this stuff in the news media about how horrible it is and how it's devastating and how it's so mean-spirited. But in reality, it's cemented a $1.5+ trillion redistribution of wealth in our system. It's just a little bit different the way they're redistributing it. That's all it is. But
boy, that's an interesting perspective. That's really good.
And that's not a metaphor, Craig. That's the numbers, right, in the CBO report. It's gone from 1.75 trillion to 1.6 trillion.
Yeah, and the news media talks about this being $119 billion of deficit reduction. Well, that's insane because It's not. It's still $1.6 trillion more than we have. We're already $20 trillion in debt, right? And this is cementing something that was already there.
There was a congressman yesterday during that same hearing that Mick Mulvaney made his righteous speech, saying, back where I come from, if you're going to have an 8% increase and you got a 4% increase, that's called an increase. In Washington, it's called a cut.
Right.
If you spend $80 last year, you spend $80 this year. Back home, we call that steady. Here, it's called a cut. And there's a lot of that going on. Craig Gottwal's, Craig, the Obamacare lawyer, on the line. His website to get a hold of him if you need help with benefits and that sort of thing for your company is benefits-revolution.com. Benefit-revolution.com. Craig, is there anything else critical before we let you go?
I just want to leave you with a...
Other than we're doomed. You didn't end with the...
We're going... Look, I don't want to overstate this. We are headed towards single payer. I think this buys us a couple more years. If something like this were to pass the Senate, I think it buys us a couple more years before we go there.
If we're headed towards single payer, then, since we're talking big picture, if we're headed towards single payer, would it be a good thing if the state of California went single payer so the whole country could get a look at how it works or doesn't?
It would be a great thing if you live in the 49 other states.
If you live in California, maybe it doesn't work that way. But
no.
But in general, at least it'd be a test case for before we go nationwide with the whole thing.
That's right. I don't know if you saw it, Jack. I had sent it to Joe a couple days ago. They're looking at a minimum 15% payroll tax across the board on every single working Californian just to get to the point where you might be able to afford that proposal they're talking about.
Great. That'll be great for job growth. Craig, let California do it. The canary in the coal mine doesn't enjoy its work.
But it's helpful.
It's bad work.
No. We canaries got to get across the border if they do something like that.
Hey, final question, talking about heading towards single payer almost inevitably. What's the latest figure you've seen on the percentage of Americans who are actually getting their health care or health care insurance from the government at this point?
Yeah, this is a great one. So if you now the statistic that the UCLA study, the UCLA RAND study, again, that's a pretty neutral source, said is in most of the country, 60%, and actually all of the country, 60% of your health care is paid for by the taxpayer. And that is defined as not only Medicare, Medicaid, TRICARE, VA, Social Security benefits, but also if you work for a federal or state government, right? Because that's taxpayer funded as well. So that's 60% nationally, and it's 70% in your blue states. If you say, okay, well, let's take out those people that are working for a government, it's still over 50%. It's like 54% are on a government program.
So we're already over halfway, maybe 2/3 of the way, if you want to look at it that way, towards socialism already anyway.
Yeah,
on the healthcare front.
Right.
Well, that's a cheery note. Craig Gottwal's benefit-revolution.com. Craig, thanks for the insight, man.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Good to talk to you.
It's so much easier to be a big spender than it is to want to be fiscally disciplined. It's just so much easier.
In a family, in a relationship, as a state, as a nation.
You have all the fun and emotion on your side.
Right.
And you're just a mean Scrooge if you're on the... Well, I'll call it the dad side of things. It says, no, I don't think we should get a swimming pool or whatever.
There are plenty of fiscally responsible women out there resenting that.
Sure.
How dare you, sir?
But it's a lot more fun to be the one on the arguing the, let's go ahead and do it.
And I tell you what, I say this with great sympathy, whether you're left, right, or center. It is so hard to take in the news and have any effing idea what's going on in the world.
Yeah.
Oh, they have no idea what they're talking about.